The seatbelt sign had been off for almost 2 hours when Captain Elena Voss made the announcement that changed everything. Somewhere over the Atlantic at 38,000 feet, flight attendant Marisol Reyes was clearing coffee cups when she noticed the woman in 8A hadn't stirred once since boarding. She was maybe 50, gray threading through dark hair pulled into a tight braid, hands folded neatly in her lap even in sleep. The kind of stillness that comes from years of learning to rest whenever rest is offered, because you never know when it'll be taken away. If you've ever underestimated the quiet person sitting beside you, this story is going to stay with you long after it ends, because the woman in seat 8A was about to become the reason 240 people made it home. The trouble started quietly, the way real emergencies often do. A soft chime, then another, then the captain's voice crackling through the cabin with the practiced .com pilots are trained to hold even when nothing feels calm at all. First Officer Daniels had collapsed at the controls. A sudden cardiac event, the onboard defibrillator was fighting to reverse, and Captain Voss was now alone in the cockpit of a wide-body jet somewhere over open water, weather building ahead, hours from the nearest runway long enough to land on. "This is your captain speaking," the voice said, steadier than it had any right to be. "I need to ask an unusual question. Is there anyone aboard with flight experience, specifically anyone with military or combat aviation training? Please identify yourself to a flight attendant immediately." The cabin went silent in that particular way a plane full of strangers goes silent, each person glancing sideways, waiting for someone else to be the answer. It was Marisol who noticed the woman in 8A had already unbuckled her seatbelt before the announcement finished, already standing, already moving toward the front of the aircraft with the unhurried urgency of someone who had done far harder things than this. "I flew F-15s, she said quietly to the attendant, 16 years, retired 3 ago. She didn't say why she'd retired, not yet. There wasn't time. Her name was Colonel Kate Marsh, though almost no one on that flight would ever learn her rank. She moved into the cockpit and slid into the jump seat, and within minutes she was reading altitudes, cross-checking fuel, talking Captain Voss through decisions with the flat, unshaking cadence of someone who had once guided wounded aircraft back through worse skies than this. What none of the passengers knew, what Kate herself rarely spoke of, was that she hadn't touched a set of flight controls since the night she lost her wingman over unfamiliar terrain. A mission that ended in a funeral she still blamed herself for, a guilt so heavy she'd walked away from the only thing she'd ever loved rather than risk being responsible for someone's life in the sky again. For 3 years she'd told herself she was done, and now fate had placed her in seat 8A. On the one flight where a stranger's heartbeat and 240 others needed exactly what she swore she'd never give again. She gave it anyway. For the next 90 minutes, Kate helped recalculate a diversion to the nearest capable airport, helped monitor an engine performing under strain, helped keep a shaking rookie first officer's voice steady over the radio when the weather turned rough near the coast. When the wheels finally touched down, smooth and certain, the cabin erupted into the kind of applause reserved for miracles, though only Captain Voss and the medical crew waiting on the tarmac ever learned how close it had truly been. Daniels survived. The passengers walked off into ordinary lives, most never realizing the sleeping woman from 8A had quietly rewritten the ending of their story. But Kate stood on the tarmac afterward, hands trembling for the first time all day, and finally let herself believe what she'd spent 3 years refusing to accept, that saving one life doesn't erase a loss, but it can, finally, begin to heal it. If this story reached something in you, it's because we all carry a version of Kate's guilt, some reason we've quietly stepped back from the very thing we were made for. Let her story be the reminder that your gift didn't expire just because it once broke your heart. Somebody out there is still waiting for you to show up. So take a moment right now to think of the skill you buried out of fear. Share this story with someone who needs the nudge to pick it back up, and leave a comment telling us what your seat 8A moment might be, because you never know whose flight you were quietly meant to save.